Welcome to Archive Dive. I'm Maria Lockwood, a reporter with the Superior Telegram. Each month, we dip into files on historic events, people, and places in Superior and Douglas County with local historians. Today, we dig into the history of two of Superior's architectural siblings, the Broadway and Palace theaters. Both the Broadway, which opened in 1912, and the Palace, which opened in 1917, were designed by brothers George and C.W. Rapp. The Palace stood until 2006, when it was razed by the city in the midst of a legal battle. The Broadway had a shorter shelf life. What did these sister spaces look like, and what famous faces graced their stages? To get the answers, we are turning to local historian Teddy Meronek. Hello, Teddy.
Hi, Maria.
Thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome.
So we're here to talk about theater.
I know, my favorite.
Now, the Broadway came first, but didn't last as long.
No.
And the Palace, people who are listening may remember the Palace as it changed over the years into a movie. Didn't it do movies at one point, or?
The Palace?
The Palace?
It did. It turned into a church.
Oh,
right
and then
after,
it was a church?
Yeah, and then there were two gentlemen who were going to open a restaurant in there, and that fell through, and then it sat vacant.
Right.
Yeah.
Both of them went through a number of different ownerships, but they both started as theaters.
Both of them started as theaters.
Were they similar? Did they look the same inside?
Oh, I wish I could answer that question. There are so few photographs. There's a series of them in the Tribune when Broadway opened. You will see pictures of the outside of the Palace. Even those are fairly scarce, but very few of the interior.
Okay, so whether they did look similar or not,
I have
nobody
no
knows.
idea, really. But they were designed by the same brothers, George and Cornelius Ward. I'm sure they were similar in many ways. They were both almost the same size. They both sat 1,200 people.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of
Those
people.
are big theaters, and I don't know what Superior was thinking to build two theaters of that size that were specifically designed for not only vaudeville, but movies.
Okay, so they both were equipped for vaudeville
they
well
were,
as movies.
Yeah. Not talkies either. They were built during the silent movie era.
Oh, so they'd have a piano up there on stage to go to play along with the movie.
Yeah. I think the Broadway was built because there was a group of men in Superior, some of them were involved in the Men's Commercial Club, who were really pushing Broadway to be the main street. They thought the rents for buildings were too high on Tower, the real estate was too high, and that Broadway was the natural main street of Superior because it ran east to west.
East to west?
Instead of north to south. Apparently that was important. And if you think of Duluth, their main street runs east to west. So I don't know if they were looking at that and looking at how much faster Duluth was growing than Superior. So they were really pushing this. This is going to be the future of Superior. This is where all the businesses are going to go when they leave the high rents of Tower Avenue. So it was a local group that put together the money to build the Broadway. And one of them was T.J. Roth's brother, A.A.
Oh.
One of them was former mayor Harvey Dietrich. And then the other man, he had been an employee of Roth's. So they started this company and then they sold stock shares in it to build the Broadway. And they had to raise about $60,000. That's what it cost.
Okay.
It's a big theater. It was about 125 feet by about 72 feet. And it had 3 stories because not only was it a theater, they had stores on the bottom level, storefronts. Okay. And then the second floor not only included parts of the theater, but it also had offices. And then the third floor, there were, I don't know how many rooms up there. It eventually turned into a hotel. That's a little known fact that there was a hotel on the top floor of the Broadway. And I think these investors thought, well, we're going to make all this money from rentals. No, and it's really sad. It had such a short lifespan for all the money they spent on it.
Definitely. Where on Broadway was it?
In the corner of Ogden and Broadway.
Corner of Ogden and Broadway. And the building is no longer there?
No, it's gone. Yeah, it was torn down in the mid-'80s.
At that point, it was no longer a theater, though, right?
No, it was the home to the Superior, why can't I remember now?
Is the Eagles Club?
The Eagles were there, and the Elks had their building across the street because they had that building burned down. Yeah, the Eagles were there, and yeah, I think it was in the mid-'70s when they really started thinking about it, that they had to get rid of it because they could no longer support it. And they had to have a lot of safety additions to it, I suppose sprinklers and whatever else they needed to make sure the alarm systems that would make the building safe because it was old, and We've seen that before,
Fires,
downtown, the
yeah.
fires, yeah.
Mhm.
So, but it opened in 12
Right.
and it continued as a theater until it changed its name once. It changed to the Rialto in
Rialto.
1920. So that was only 8 years after it opened up. It changed to the Rialto. And then about 5 or 7 years later, that was the end. It had lasted, I don't even think it lasted 20 years
As a theater.
as a theater. They sold it once and they sold it to another theater company.
Mhm.
And then they didn't make a go of it.
Oh.
And I don't know what the reason was. And maybe it was just because of its location. It may have been they may have thought it was the main street of the future, but it wasn't. I mean, there was even talk about moving the arch that was on Broadway and Tower down to Ogden and Broadway.
Oh, wow.
And
they
that-
really wanted to make
Yeah,
Broadway
they really
shine.
did. Yeah. But it was kind of sad. And they tried everything. I mean, they had local talent shows at the Broadway. My favorite was the woman who brought her dancing horse on stage. I thought that was one of the best.
Was that a local woman with a
Yes,
dancing
yes.
horse?
They were all local talents and they
Okay.
had like school pep rallies there.
Okay.
They had local theaters doing their productions on the stage there.
Mhm.
I mean, so much. But I think another reason why they may have had problems there is that they had a lot of worker issues. They had an orchestra.
Oh.
I think it was only 6-piece, but these were musicians and trained musicians who, knew what they were doing. And they were fed up with management because they weren't getting paid as much money as the same musicians were over in Duluth.
Oh.
And management's argument was, well, it's cheaper to live in Superior than it is in Duluth. So they had quite a bit of problems with unions and unionizing and that. The stagehands went out when they wouldn't pay the orchestra. Well, you can't run a show if you don't have stagehands,
Nope.
So they closed down for quite a while, I think, at that time.
Okay. And the hotel above it, the business offices underneath it, those also did not support
must
it like
not
they thought?
have made enough money to
Were there
support
any
it.
businesses located there that would have name recognition
No,
today?
It's really hard to find. I'd have to do a really deep dive, because the city directory didn't start listing by address, people or
Oh.
businesses by address until 1930.
Okay.
So before that, it's kind of hard.
And when did it become a hotel up above?
I don't know if they ever rented. I think they were really built for apartments or rental units. And I don't know if at first they considered it a hotel or if it was just, apartments that you short-term leases on apartments. But probably in about 1916 to 20,
Okay.
there were ads like in the city directory, full-page ads about the Broadway Hotel. And then later on, it was run by this woman named May Eaton. And so they called it the Mayton Hotel or something like that.
Oh.
And I think that ran close to till they actually sold the building.
Okay.
When
and
they,
it became the
when the
Eagles
Eagles,
Club.
when they wanted to sell it, yeah.
You said a lot of local talent came to the Broadway. Did they have any famous folks show up
Oh, the Marx Brothers.
at the Broadway?
At the Broadway, only 3 days only, 1 matinee, 2 night performances. That was it.
When were they there?
They were there the opening year at the end of the year, December of 1912. And they did this show. I mean, it was a whole show. They brought 26 people with them.
Oh, wow.
They had a boxcar load, I suppose, full of scenery and things, and then it was the brothers, all of the brothers. And they did the stage show called, was it Dr. Green's Reception? And I found it on the internet. And it's
Really?
hilarious. And I guess they were the biggest draw ever.
Oh, I
Standing
can
room only for the Marx Brothers. And you think this is pretty early. This is 1912. They hadn't made any movies yet. They hadn't done any of that. And already they were a name across the country.
Awesome. And it started so promisingly then with that.
I know, but it kind of went downhill. They did have this lady who, what was she called? The woman aviatrix or something, the woman aviator. And apparently she was in a plane that was strung from the ceiling and she would swing back and forth and sing songs. To me, I would probably go to see that. But most of these shows were like, oh no, I don't know. They would have, I think at the Palace, they had somebody who came on stage opening night that drew chalk pictures of people that were in the audience.
Okay. Well, some people like watching artists, like watching Bob Ross paint or
right.
something. This
And
is a
I
chalk
think,
artist.
well, you didn't have television or, so this is how you entertain yourself. But for some reason, and I think your success as a vaudeville theater depends on who you can book.
Right.
What theatrical group you get in with that is going to have the kind of groups and entertainers that are going to draw audiences.
Mhm.
And maybe they just didn't make enough money, or I don't know what happened, but they could not get the people they needed.
Right. Whereas the Palace, on the other hand, was able to do much better.
Yes, and I don't know why.
Okay.
Same
And
designers,
same designers, same basic space for
1,200
theater.
people in each theater could be
It was a
seated.
smaller building, though, wasn't it?
Nope, it was almost the exact size.
Did it also have the businesses down below? And
No,
other-
no, it wasn't as tall.
Okay.
Yeah, the Broadway was 3 stories, so it wasn't quite as tall. But the thing about the Palace that people don't know about is like what was underneath.
What was underneath?
Tunnels. There is this great article, if you ever get a chance and have any interest in the Palace Theater, Deb Krieg, who wrote for the Telegram for many years, she got in there right after it closed down, or maybe the day before it was going to finally close for the last time as a theater. And she toured everything, the basement where they had animal cages.
What?
For the,
Okay.
for the
vaudeville
animals
actors.
that were brought with the vaudeville actors. They had, and this is such a great thing, both the Broadway and the Palace offered these services. In the Broadway, they had like a coat check for babies.
What?
You could come to the theater with your child, and if you didn't want to take them into the theater, you could check them like your hat, coat, or cane, and leave them with a maid.
With a maid?
Yes.
Mm.
They didn't say anything else about that room,
Did you
but
get a number so I can identify them later?
yeah, I don't know. But in the Palace, it was different because they actually had a playroom and they had a merry-go-round and a sand pile for the kids that parents did not want to.
Well, in the building.
In
they
the
had a
building,
sand pile
that
and
was
a
there,
merry-go-round.
yes.
Wow.
And the basement, there were, of course, dressing rooms for the actors,
Mhm.
and they had both bath and shower facilities for them. I don't know if they're just for the actors or for the animals too, I'm not sure.
Both. Any?
But apparently there were lots of tunnels down there.
Where
That
did they lead to?
I don't know. One was supposedly under the sidewalk in front of the building too.
Huh.
I don't know how they fed down there from the upper floors
Mhm.
and things. So yeah, there are a lot of secrets. But what surprises me about both of these buildings is that they were Rapp and Rapp theaters. And I think anybody interested in theater history or the history of old theaters knows that name because they were one of the most famous theater architectural firms in the country. And they
Really?
built a lot of theaters in Chicago, especially because they were originally from Illinois
Mhm.
and they were brothers. And the older brother, who was Cornelius, was 18 years older than his younger brother. And his younger brother, of all the family, they had been educated at the normal school, at a local normal school in Illinois. But his brother, the younger one, George, had actually graduated from a college with an architecture degree. So he had a bachelor's degree in architecture. So they considered him a modern architect, that's what he was adding to the firm because there were 2 other brothers who were also architects and then the father.
Mhm.
So that's what George brought to it. So they designed these, they were palaces. They really were. Their buildings don't look that ostentatious from the outside,
Mhm.
but you go inside and it's like a wedding cake. It's gold and it's these beautiful colors, and they had stained glass and tiles and all of this stuff.
Wow.
But apparently, after a few years in both theaters, they both decided to remodel. Like about 4 years after each theater was open, they decided to remodel and paint over all this stuff so it would be more restful and your eyes wouldn't be bothered by the glare
Mhm.
of the bold paint.
So what colors did they go to?
Cream and light blue and that. And
Okay.
I would give anything. They didn't use color photography very much or at all, but I bet there were artists rendering for the architects of the interior in color.
I wonder if those would be someplace.
Probably not.
Somebody's
If somebody
referenced
should
in
look around, I advise people to look around and see if they can find these. Yeah.
Oh, it would be neat to see them
And
in color.
eventually, Deb Krieg said in her article that they just painted the whole interior one color at the end.
Mm.
And they had gone over the stained glass with paint and the tiles with paint
Oh,
and
no.
just supposed to clean it up.
Mm.
So
Did you ever go to anything at the Palace?
I did. And I went to their longest running movie,
Which was?
which ran for 12 weeks, which was Love Story.
Love Story. Oh, my.
12 weeks at the Palace.
Long.
Very,
record-breaking.
yeah. They usually changed weekly or every
Uh-huh.
other week. So 12 weeks at the Palace. They both ran movies.
Okay.
Broadway didn't have talkies, but the Palace had talkies.
Mhm.
And they would run these in addition to their vaudeville shows in the beginning.
Do you think that might have helped with keeping them more relevant?
I don't know, but they both did it, but they didn't stay open long enough. The Broadway didn't for talkies, because that 1928 was the year that the Palace put in talkies. They got all the new equipment. It took them 2 weeks to put in the audio equipment for this.
Oh, I bet.
And State Street Sadie, starring Myrna Loy, was the first picture. But the added attraction was they started a couple weeks later doing newsreels, which were common things before television that movie theaters ran, and especially popular during World War II. But in this particular newsreel, they knew people in Superior would be interested because they had not only the photos, the movie film of it, but they also the talking of the log rolling contest in Washburn, not Hayward, Washburn. And you could hear all the sounds.
Come see the
that probably drew people in, I'm sure.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So they were ahead of the times then. And they actually later on, when they remodeled in the 50s, was when they did just this huge remodel and got rid of, I'm sure, of a lot of the original pieces that were in there.
Mm-hmm.
They actually put in a movie screen that you could show 3D movies on. Wow. So they were kind of keeping up with the times. Yeah.
Were they always owned by the same group?
Oh, no.
Because the other one changed hands a lot.
Yeah, it changed hands. Yeah. Hard to make a go of.
I suppose.
Especially towards the end, hard to make a go of a one-screen theater in a town because the multiplexes were coming in.
Right.
And that's what eventually killed the Palace. Was
when did the multiplexes come in? That would have been with the mall. Was
the
that
malls,
in the 80s,
yeah.
Or was that earlier?
Whenever they built the Superior Mall, but they had them in Duluth too, because they had one in Kenwood.
Okay.
I remember going to those in the 70s. I think I saw Jaws in one of those.
But the Palace was open until.
It was open until 1982, I believe.
Okay, 82 is when it closed down.
Reds was the last picture, yeah.
And then it changed hands a couple times and was like
it was the church, and then they had these dreams of opening a restaurant in there.
Right.
And that all fell through, and then the county owned it, but then I think they deeded it over to the city.
Mm-hmm. And by the time there was an effort to save,
yes, a hard-fought one.
It was. I remember there were a lot of editorials and letters to the editor, and there were a couple tours of the building. Of the
theater, yeah. Well, I think anyone who had ever seen, there are a couple black and white photos of the interior of the Palace, or who had ever been to a Rapp and Rapp theater, would think, you people had two in this town, and we can't save this one. I was part of that, and it was sad. And I don't know if Superior would have been able to save it. It would have been millions and millions of dollars to get it back to what it looked like originally. But Baraboo does have their Rapp and Rapp theater, and they're a very small town, but it's functioning. And
is it fairly similar in design then to the Palace?
I'm sure what the interior looks like. I'm thinking that they probably did the same sort of design in the Palace. Okay. It was amazing buildings. I can't believe we had two of them in this town. I don't think Duluth has a Rapp and Rapp theater. I'm not sure. I mean, they had a lot of magnificent theaters in Duluth, but I don't think they had a Rapp and Rapp design. So
you mentioned the Marx Brothers came to the Broadway. Did any big names come to the Palace?
I think maybe, do I remember Roy Rogers being there?
Oh.
I'm not sure. And I think Stan Laurel maybe.
Okay.
Before he was he was, I think, touring in vaudeville with his wife at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, but no one, I think, as big as the Marx Brothers.
Okay. Now, to put these theaters in perspective, the Princess Theater is a theater that the city is looking at possibly renovating and bringing back. Is that about the same size, or is the Princess much smaller?
Oh, the Princess is minute compared to those.
How many? Okay.
I don't know how many seats there were in there. And it was built between the two big theaters. I mean, time frame wise, it was built after the Broadway, but before the Palace. So Superior had a lot of small theaters.
Was the Grand still too? The Grand Opera House still going at that time?
Yes. When they sold the Broadway to the Eagles, they also sold the Grand Opera House, the Plaza, as it was known at that time, to the Moose. So there were two of those organizations in different buildings. So they were going well in the beginning when the Palace and Broadway were.
So at a time, there were 4 big theaters, and now in Superior, we have
none. Yes. We haven't since the Mariner Mall.
Correct.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was a town that liked its theater. And there's always this rumor that Judy Garland performed at the Palace. No, sorry to say.
You can say that definitively?
I can say it definitively. Yeah. She never performed in Superior.
Okay.
That's the urban legend that's been going on and on and on for years, but she didn't.
There's that, and then the one about the tunnels being walkways between hotels and the palace.
Yeah, no.
All those theater rumors flying around.
All those theater rumors, theater people, you got to check on them.
Well, Marx Brothers and Stan Laurel were both here.
Yeah, Marx Brothers, yeah. I would give anything to see that show.
And with all of the sets and everything.
I know. And it must have been a hard life, traveling on the vaudeville circuit. And I want to know where they stayed. They had 26 people. Did they make them go back to the boxcar and sleep where the scenery had been? I thought, did they pay to put them up at like the Hotel Superior? There was the Broadway Hotel down the block away, on Hammond and Broadway. Where did they put up all these people? They certainly had to, unless they slept in the theater. I don't know. There's so many questions.
Well,
you open up like, a bag of worms here. Where am I going to find these answers? I hope if somebody's listening that has the answers, they'll let us know. But I wish when I had worked on the tour of the palace, that I had been brave enough to go down in the basement just to see what it was like for those people. You're underground.
Right.
You're getting ready for your act. That is your only source of income, is the money you make traveling vaudeville. You hope you make a good impression. Your makeup's on right and whatever. Groucho had to put on his little mustache. He had to paint that on.
And then across from you, there's the dancing horse waiting for its
time. They had so many interesting people. The Italian singers. No, what were they called? They were the Italian street singers.
Okay.
They're actually Italian. And they had a lot of people doing interesting things that nowadays would not hold people's attention. So vaudeville must have been in a hard life, but it must have been interesting. A lot of big actors came out of vaudeville, like Jimmy Cagney, Bob Hope, Cary Grant. They were all vaudevillians in the beginning.
Right. It was TV for folks.
Yeah.
You had to wait a day to turn the channel, but then you could try something new. So maybe that's why there were so many eclectic
Or just sit on your couch and tell Alexa to turn it on for you.
Times they have changed.
They
Maybe
have.
That's one reason why, the theater culture, TV came in, radio came in, and people found other things to do.
I just find it interesting that Superior would think that it could support these two theaters. And I understand that you didn't have TV, you didn't have radio at that time either. And so you have no other form of entertainment unless you go to like a theatrical production somewhere. But 1,200 people in both theaters is a lot of people. And to make a go of, especially that big Broadway building when you're, it's just not all theater. It was funny when the Eagles took it over, the first thing they did was rip out the theater. That's where they were using their club rooms were there, and they were still renting the rest of the space to other people. But so there was, after what year did they go in there? There's nothing left of that anymore. Even if the building was standing right now, there would be nothing of the theater. Where the palace was the palace till the end.
Right.
There was still a stage. They didn't have an orchestra pit anymore because they didn't have an orchestra anymore.
Didn't need one.
So, all the people that were employed, you think of how many musicians were employed in this town because every theater had a musician. Judy Garland's parents.
Okay, so she wasn't here, but her parents were here?
If it wasn't for Superior, Wisconsin, people should know this. If it wasn't for Superior, Wisconsin, there would not be a Judy Garland.
What?
There would be no Wizard of Oz.
Why?
Her mother lived here and played piano or organ, and she played in local movie theaters, and her dad worked the circuit, the vaudeville circuit, was a singer. Came to Superior and they met each other and got married here.
We are the nexus of Judy Garland.
Judy Garland's one of the only people that generation to generation knows who she is. And it's all because of the Wizard of Oz. I like to think it's all because of Superior, but...
I like that thought. Let's go with that.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Teddy.
You're welcome.
And thank you for listening to Archive Dive. New episodes are available monthly at superiortelegram.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have a topic you'd like us to explore, email me at mlockwood@superiortelegram.com.